Welcome, seekers of hidden history. Today, we travel into the Nevada desert, to a cave that holds one of America's darkest and most controversial legends. A place where myth, archaeology, and conspiracy collide. This is the story of Lovelock Cave, and the mysterious giant said to have once lived there. According to Native Paiute tradition, a race of towering, red-haired giants once roamed this land, terrorizing tribes until they were finally destroyed in a desperate battle. But when miners entered Lovelock Cave in the early 1900s, they uncovered evidence that seemed to match the old legends. Did the Paiutes record real history, or was it myth? Were giant skeletons really discovered, only to be hidden away from the public eye? Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our explorations into the mysteries that challenge mainstream history. The Paiute legend. The Paiute people, whose ancestors lived across Nevada for thousands of years, tell a chilling legend. They spoke of the Ctcah, a race of giant, red-haired beings. These creatures were described as violent cannibals, towering over ordinary humans. The Paiute said they would hunt, enslave, and even consume neighboring tribes. For generations, elders passed down the story of a final battle. The tribes united against the giants, chasing the last survivors into a massive cave. Fires were set at the entrance, filling it with smoke until every giant inside was dead. To the Paiutes, this was not fantasy, it was history remembered through oral tradition. Skeptics dismiss the tale as folklore, but it is important to note, native oral traditions often preserve real events, encoded in story form. Could the Paiute memory of giants be rooted in encounters with something archaeologists are unwilling to accept? The cave's discovery. Fast forward to the early 20th century. In 1911, guano miners digging in Lovelock Cave made a shocking discovery. Beneath layers of bat droppings, they found thousands of artifacts, tools, weapons, and woven materials. But what truly stunned them were items that seemed far too large for normal humans. Among the reports were sandals over 15 inches long, baskets, and weapons suggesting owners of unusual size. Rumors spread quickly. Were these the remains of the red-haired giants the Paiutes had warned about? Archaeologists soon stepped in, cataloging over 10,000 objects from the cave. Some went to museums, while others disappeared into private collections. The miners also claimed to have uncovered skeletal remains, but these, too, would soon vanish, sparking one of history's most enduring conspiracies. Was Lovelock Cave simply a native settlement? Or the burial site of a forgotten race? The giant skeletons. The most explosive claim about Lovelock Cave involves giant skeletons. Early accounts mention bones measuring well over 7 feet, with one report describing a skeleton close to 9 feet tall. Even more intriguing, some remains were said to have red hair, eerily matching the Paiute descriptions. But here's the problem, these skeletons seem to have vanished. Miners reported them. Local papers wrote about them. Yet when archaeologists and museums took over, the bones disappeared from public record. Today, only artifacts remain, while the supposed giant remains are nowhere to be found. Were they destroyed, misplaced, or deliberately hidden? Critics argue the skeletons never existed. Believers counter that such a cover-up fits a long pattern of inconvenient discoveries being quietly removed. If true, the Lovelock giants were real people whose story has been erased. And the question is, by accident, or by design? The Smithsonian connection. Whenever giant skeletons appear in American history, one name surfaces repeatedly, the Smithsonian Institution. For over a century, stories have circulated of the Smithsonian allegedly receiving giant remains, only for them to disappear. Lovelock Cave fits this pattern perfectly. Some claim the Smithsonian collected bones from the site, only to later dismiss them as misidentified or lost. In 2014, the Smithsonian even faced a lawsuit over accusations of destroying giant skeletons in the early 1900s. Though dismissed, the controversy only fueled suspicion. Why would a prestigious institution hide such discoveries? Theories range from protecting the established timeline of human history to avoiding religious or scientific upheaval. After all, the existence of a race of giants in America would rewrite our understanding of ancient civilizations. Is this just conspiracy talk, or a glimpse into a larger cover-up that keeps humanity's past in the shadows? Skeptics versus believers. Not everyone is convinced by the Lovelock story. Skeptics argue that the so-called giant sandals were ceremonial or symbolic, not footwear for giants. They claim red hair can result from natural mummification processes, not proof of a different race. Archaeologists say the bones found in the cave were ordinary human remains, exaggerated by newspapers hungry for sensational stories. From this perspective, the Paiute legend of the Cite Cah is just that, a legend, never meant to be taken literally. Yet believers point out the persistence of giant myths across cultures. Why do native stories consistently describe tall, powerful beings that once ruled the land? Why did early miners and settlers insist they saw giant bones firsthand? At the heart of the debate lies a simple question: is history as straightforward as textbooks say, or are we being shielded from truths too disruptive to accept? Giants in American myth. The Paiute aren't the only ones with tales of giants. Across the United States, native tribes tell eerily similar stories. The Choctaw spoke of giant warriors. The Navajo described tall cannibals who lived in caves. Even the Iroquois had legends of a race of enormous men who once battled humans. In the 1800s, newspapers frequently reported discoveries of giant skeletons in burial mounds across the Midwest. Many measured 7 to 9 feet tall, often with unusual skull shapes. Though mainstream archaeology later dismissed these accounts, the pattern is hard to ignore. When we view Lovelock Cave through this wider lens, it no longer seems like an isolated legend. Instead, it fits into a nationwide tradition of giant myths and discoveries. Could these be fragments of a suppressed history, where an entire race once walked America, leaving behind whispers in stone, bone, and memory? Archaeological evidence. Let's step back from legend and focus on what we do know. Archaeologists excavated Lovelock Cave in the 1920s and uncovered a treasure trove: duck decoys, nets, stone tools, and woven mats. Many were dated back over 4,000 years, making Lovelock one of the richest prehistoric sites in Nevada. Among the artifacts were sandals, weapons, and bones that raised eyebrows. One report described a femur so large, it could not have belonged to a normal-sized human. Another noted jawbones that dwarfed those of modern men. Yet most of these finds were either reclassified or quietly set aside. Even without giants, Lovelock Cave reveals a sophisticated culture, one capable of advanced weaving, hunting, and desert survival long before history says such skills appeared. But the question remains, did archaeologists overlook, or deliberately dismiss, evidence that challenged their worldview? The missing evidence. One of the greatest frustrations with Lovelock Cave is the missing evidence. Miners swore they uncovered giant bones. Local papers printed the stories. Yet today, nearly all of those remains are gone. Museums house some artifacts, but not the skeletons that caused such a stir. Some claim poor record-keeping and the chaos of early excavations explain the loss. Others insist the bones were quietly removed to prevent public controversy. The Smithsonian is often accused, but definitive proof is lacking. Still, eyewitness reports are difficult to dismiss. Too many people, miners, settlers, even early scientists, claimed they saw something extraordinary. Were they all mistaken? Or was evidence truly erased? The mystery of the missing bones is what keeps Lovelock alive. Without them, skeptics dismiss the story. But with them, history itself would be forced to confront a very different past. Science weighs in. Modern science largely rejects the idea of giants. Human variation has produced tall individuals, but entire races of 8 to 10 foot beings. Genetic evidence doesn't support it. Many supposed giant bones from the past turned out to be mastodon remains, distorted skeletons, or hoaxes. Yet Lovelock Cave doesn't fit neatly into those explanations. The Paiute legend predates European contact, ruling out modern hoaxes. And the miners' accounts came before giant mania took hold in newspapers. Some researchers argue that Lovelock Cave's giants were simply tall members of a unique tribe, exaggerated into legend over centuries. Others suggest the Paiute memory may encode a real conflict, with an unusually large, hostile group, later mythologized as monsters. Science demands hard evidence. But when evidence goes missing, and only stories remain, mystery fills the void. And that's where Lovelock continues to thrive, in the gray space between fact and forgotten history. The Global Connection, 150 words. If Lovelock Cave stood alone, perhaps it could be dismissed. But giant legends exist worldwide. From the Nephilim of the Bible to the Cyclopes of Greece, from Irish folklore to South American myths, cultures everywhere speak of enormous beings who shaped early human history. Archaeological oddities, like massive megaliths, often fuel speculation. Were giants the builders of impossible monuments? Could the red-haired Ctcah of Nevada connect to global myths of giant races? Some fringe researchers even suggest a lost civilization of giants, scattered across the world after a cataclysm, leaving behind both legends and bones. While mainstream science dismisses these theories, the sheer universality of giant myths gives pause. Is Lovelock Cave just a strange local tale? Or a surviving piece of a global puzzle, one that hints humanity's distant past was far stranger than we've been told? Lovelock Cave is more than just a hole in the Nevada desert. It's a mirror of human mystery, where legend and archaeology clash. The Paiute speak of red-haired giants destroyed in fire. Miners swore they found their remains. Archaeologists uncovered artifacts but dismissed the extraordinary. And somewhere along the way, bones vanished, perhaps forever. So what is the truth? Were the giants real, suppressed by institutions unwilling to rewrite history? Or was it all a misunderstanding, myth layered upon myth, until imagination turned ordinary people into monsters? Until the missing evidence is found, Lovelock Cave will remain a dark riddle in America's past. A place where fact and legend blend, daring us to question how much history has been hidden in plain sight. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more mysteries of lost civilizations and forbidden history. The truth, as always, may be stranger than we imagine.